Hello and welcome back. This is our fourth one, I think. I'm losing count, but that's a good thing. So I'm going to just go launch straight in with the asking you to let us know what the weather's like where you are, because I always think that's fun, and in the chat. And I'm going to share my screen and bring up the PowerPoint presentation, and we'll get started. So it is climate writing for a better world, accurate and positive messaging. So we're starting with that. And our learning objectives today are to balance the science accurately with hope. So we've been looking a lot at the accuracy of the science. Now we're going to try and bring in some hope. We're going to craft engaging climate narratives. And I think that's really important to kind of not close people down on the message. And then we're going to develop positive future scenarios, because we all want a positive future. And we're going to look at or try to master solutions-focused writing. So looking at what's happening out there. And we will delve into this a lot more later on in the course as well. So all of this is interlinked with other lessons. Now, we're going to have a wee poll. So if Paul would start the little app part of the poll, if we can manage this. This is the first time we've tried this, so let's hope it works. So I want you to have a look at which headline would make you read further. And here we have two headlines. We have, oh great, there's the poll come up. So we have this year is set to be the first to breach 1.5C global warming limit. That's a BBC headline. I got that from their website actually. And then this one was 2 countries in Europe are powered by 100% renewable energy as wind capacity soars. And that's a Euronews headline. And the pictures are, for people who are just listening in, the picture for the BBC headline news one is of two women at a well. And it's actually a very brightly coloured photograph. They're wearing red saris, and they're sort of one's washing in the water from the well, a tap. It's actually a tap. It's probably a well, but it just looks like a tap. And then the other one is a picture of the one about the renewable energy is a picture of a wind farm, basically. All right. So the poll has come in as a dead heat. If you vote now, oh, it's all changing. Excellent. It's everybody that's wanted to vote voted. It's all changing as more people come in. I'll give it another second. And then I'm going to, let's see, just want to make sure I can see the chat. Okay. All right. I'm going to close the poll at that. And actually, so the BBC headline was the winner at 67%. And then the Euronews headline came in at 33%. So most people were more interested in the BBC headline. Now, I think the reason for that, there's a couple of reasons. But what I want you to do before I tell you what I think, I'd like you to pop into the poll. Let me see, do I have this on this? One word to describe how headline one makes you feel. How did headline one make you feel? Do you need me to go back and show? I'm just going to go back and show you headline one. One word to let you know how it made you feel. Somebody has very helpfully, thank you, Annie, has said they'll read both, but probably the negative one first, then the positive one. I like to do that. I always like to save the good news till the last. When somebody says, do you want the good news or the bad news first? So the BBC One headline, again, this year set to be the first to breach 1.5C global warming limit. The words that are coming up here are interested, sad, despairing, scared, hopeless, anxious. So mostly negative words, but it's interesting that this is the headline that grabbed our attention. Okay. Now, if you go into the second headline, if you could do the same thing and just drop your word in there, one word to describe how that headline makes you feel. So we're getting words like positive, hopeful, optimistic, more hopeful. So all very good vibes on that one. Okay. So I'm just going to click forward a little bit. So how each headline feels. So I kind of was expecting that, because I personally as well thought that the BBC News photo was a lot. I'll go back to it. So the BBC News was a much more professional photograph to my mind. And it was it was actually a very beautiful photograph, very technically well taken. And it's also very poignant. And the fact that it had women in it, I thought was really good, because climate change is going to is going to affect women much more than men. And it's interesting to note that typically what you're finding is that, and I saw this just written on social media, so again, I'm going against what I'm going to advise you to do. I don't have like a scientific backup for this, or anything, but there is talk out there that it's mostly women who are writing about climate change, and they're the ones who are going to be affected by it the most. So I thought that was an interesting point. But I will sort of say that I haven't cross-referenced that information. However, getting back to these pictures, I think that I also found it the one that drew my attention more. And I think it's because it's more dramatic. And I think it appeals to some extent to the catastrophizer in me. And I think that's what, as writers, we do. We are inclined to catastrophize because that's how we develop our storytelling. But I want you to remember that not everyone is the same, and everybody will have different degrees of catastrophe as well. So I'll read a zombie book at the drop of a hat, love all that sort of stuff, dystopia, bring it on. But some people can't even bear to open books like that, and they wouldn't read a Stephen King book, for example. So they prefer something a little less gory, I suppose. So so everybody's going to be different. But when you're writing, it depends on the purpose. Is this a story? Are you going to reach into the drama of this and really wring it out? Or is this activism? And if you're writing for activism, it's a slightly different take on your writing. And you want to highlight hope and optimism and a call to action. And maybe the most effective way to do that, if you look at this poll and how this is developed out, is maybe you start with the catastrophizing and you finish on the call to action and the hope and the good news stories. And maybe it's a combination of both. Admittedly, now when I went looking for it was harder to find good news stories that were current. I kept these stories to within the last week. The Neuro News picture, somebody else has brought this up as well in the chat, and thank you for that, Rhonda. The second picture didn't engage me either. I found that the picture was drab, the colours in it were very muted and depressing, nearly. And I thought that even a wind farm as such would have a very low aesthetic appeal. So the picture is not doing the work that it should be doing. It's definitely not instilling hope. So that's that little exercise. And I just think that the takeaway message from that is to think about what your climate writing you want to achieve, and then work on, definitely bring people in with the drama, but leave them on the hope. So, quick quiz. I just came across this, and this is another article here. In order to help meet international climate targets, the world needs to cut carbon dioxide emissions to net zero by 2050. And I realized that I went back into my notes on the very first lesson, and that was one of the jargon terms that I hadn't actually explained or hadn't brought up. So I thought, does anybody know what does net zero mean? So what do you think net zero means? If you could pop it in the chat, what do you understand by net zero? And don't worry if you get it wrong. I'll not read your names out. Not a lot of answers coming in here at all. Less pollution, yeah. Good. I'm glad I went into this. No carbon emissions when carbon emissions are counterbalanced by savings. That's the closest one to it, yeah. Input equals output, yeah. Not using more than you consume, yeah. Yeah, so that's it. So net zero means no longer adding to the total amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So net zero doesn't mean that there is no carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It actually means that the amount that you're adding is equal to the amount that you're taking out. So it overall lessening our emissions is what we're aiming for. Oh, and just to let you know at the bottom there, that's the link where I got that, and that's the science. BBC Science is quite good. BBC News is quite up on its negative messaging, if you like, but it's up on it. It is definitely a thing now that you'll find on news stations. So the 3 pillars of effective climate writing. Scientific accuracy. We're looking at this more today. Oh, I better just check my time because I could just sit here all day and talk about this. Yeah, scientific accuracy. So we want to look at verifiable facts, current research, and clear terminology. Now, the reason current research is so important is because research can have errors in it and can change. So the current research is the one you want to go with because it will override what has maybe been erroneously thought in the past. So these ones here, human connection, personal stories, local impact, and relatable scenarios, and solution focus. This is where we're heading. We won't probably get to that today. So all of this is going to be covered in the next couple of weeks. Now, verifiable facts. What is the primary source? Sorry, one of the places I would look at is the IPCC. IPCC stands for Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So you want to look at those assessment reports. A lot of this can be quite dry reading, admittedly, but dip in, have a look, cross-check your facts for sure. Peer-reviewed journals, Nature, Climate Change, and environmental research letters, all of those a lot of those you can still search on the internet. Some of them you can actually get in your local libraries. So don't forget about your library for a source for all of this. National Science Academy publications, government climate research bodies, the World Meteorological Organization, they're actually quite amazing on the stuff that they have. National Weather Services, very good. NASA, I love going to the NASA site and just seeing what they have about climate, because I kind of feel like because they're, it's space, that they're well up on it. And I feel like a bit of an astronaut when I'm in their site. I just think it's exciting. So then you've got the NOAA's Climate Monitoring, European Environmental Agency, University Climate Research Centres, Environmental Research Institutes, and Governmental Research Laboratories. So all of those will have, all of those are a good primary source. In terms of current research, so make sure your source is peer reviewed or from an authorized body, and that goes back to the page beforehand. That's the list of your bodies. Data is from the last 5 years unless it's historical. I just noticed there that Sheila has put into the chat a search result for a link for climate change resources. Thank you, Sheila. And do have a look at that. Data, if you can make sure that the data is from the last years, unless it's historical. And what I mean by historical is, do you remember in the first lesson we looked at the graph that went back to like the 1800s and that. So yeah, that's historical because we're comparing it with now with back then. Specific numbers include context. Units are clearly stated. I'll show you an example of what I mean in a second. Uncertainty ranges included were relevant. Uncertainty ranges are in science things like plus or minus, there's a margin of error. And then the geographic scope is specified. So for example, if you just said that temperatures are rising, that's okay, right? It's better to say that the temperatures in Northern Europe are rising. And the best example is that average temperatures in Ireland have risen 1.3 degrees Celsius since 1900. Okay, so that's the degree of the sweeping statements that you can make and how to make them sounder, if you like. So, little writing exercise now on human connection. We're going to delve into this human connection thing. And again, I want to give it about 5 minutes. You can choose to either write a headline, describe a moment, create a before and after snapshot, or write a social media post from 2040. I just love the idea of that. I want you to do that now, 5 minutes to get that done, and go. When we do the chat waterfall, I will be asking, first of all, and not everybody will have done this. I might even have a case where nobody has done it, which is fine. But there were 4 different options. So in the chat waterfall, if each person who did a headline, just the headline, people, if you didn't do a headline, just wait, because I'm coming to you. But if you did a headline, if you could drop your headline into the chat now, that would be excellent. Just the headline. You were asked to do a headline and a paragraph. So if you just do the headline, it would be lovely to see some of those headlines. Great. Then, so that's brilliant. Thank you so much for the headlines. And then what I'm going to do with each headline, I'm going to take a little bit of time and get your feedback on the headlines. Okay. So so if you look at the first headline that I'm reading here, it's turning concrete into climate solutions. And I want you to just drop into the chat what you think makes it effective, and share your thoughts with that in the chat. So I've read out the message, and then I want you to look at it, and turning concrete into climate solutions. Okay, so people find that intriguing. I like it because to me there's sort of there's a connection for me with the word concrete and solution, and it's a really positive vibe, like a concrete solution. That's, even though the headline isn't saying concrete solutions, I do like that that little connection in my brain. So yeah, that somebody has said there that it's eye-catching and hopeful. And it definitely does give a sense that we can turn things around. So thank you. We'll go on. I'm going to go on to the next one. So Community Eco Garden launched at local primary school. Community Eco Garden launched at local primary school. So if people want to drop into the chat what they think makes it effective, and share their thoughts on this in the chat. So if this was in something like a local paper or a local website, that would definitely that would catch my eye, because I'd be going, oh, an eco garden and it's local, and and maybe there's a chance for the community to see it if it's a community eco garden. It's nice to see that primary school children are involved, so that all of that is lovely. Yes, lovely. There's a feel good local pride sense to that. There's educating children, educational teaching children to respect and nourish our surroundings. So that's really good. Okay, the next one was anyone out there. And what makes that effective? That one really makes me smile. I really like it. It's one of those ones that I will be reading definitely the first, few sentences to see what is it about. So what do you think makes it effective? And share that in the chat. For me, while I'm waiting for the chats to come in, I'm going to just say anyone out there has this idea that we're not alone, but you think you're alone, but you're not, because somebody is calling out into the void, and I've heard it, so maybe somebody else will hear it. Intriguing. Yeah, it hooks you in. It definitely does. So then here's another one. Island McGee Wind Farm produces energy for County Antrim. Yes, that encourages you to engage. I'm going on a wee bit quickly maybe, but encourages you and makes you want to read more. Yeah, so I've moved on to the Island McGee one. Wind farm, again, it's very like the local primary school one, in that it's local, and you think, oh, does this mean that I'm going to have cheaper electricity? It gives me hope, and I want to read more. somebody has written in the thing that hooks you in, and somebody has written an answer, an article about local fish population. Very good. Let's see now. There's so many coming into the chat that it's hard to keep up, but it's great to see that you're engaging, and thank you so much for that. Where am I? Oh, I wanted to go back up. Yeah, so I think that's all of our titles. There's one there. Ship Quay Street flooded for local water power installation. Does anybody want to comment on that as a headline? Ship Quay Street flooded for local water power installation. Can we do the same in all areas? Great idea. Ironic, a bit scary. Okay. All right. It's dramatic. Yep. Right. So I'm going to draw a line under that so that we can get a wee look at the social media posts that maybe if anybody has taken that on as an option. So that was great. Thank you. That was a really good exercise, and maybe should have just kept it to headlines. But social media posts, if anybody wrote a social media post from the year 2040, I think that's what the remit was. I'm just going to go back in to remember this. Yeah, social media post from 2040. If you did that, if you could drop it in to the chat, let's see if I got anything there. Oh, so the social media one with the anyone out there post, it worked either way. So well done there, Sinead. Yeah. So, warning of flooding again this weekend. The drains which were installed post the big flood of 2024 are already at capacity. People in coastal areas are especially vulnerable. Remember what happened when Cologne was washed away. Please check all local drainage systems. Very good. Yeah, that's a meteorologists. I'm just going to read out the social media posts because I just love this idea of people thinking about the future. Meteorologists in Zytopia only starting keeping records of temperature and rainfall in 1925. In the past 5 years, average temperatures have been 2 degrees higher than they were 99 years ago. Meanwhile, average rainfall has decreased, but the heavy rains. Oh, the head. Okay, that's okay, Philip. I thought the headline was 2040. Okay. But even so, I can see where you're going with that. So you're talking about 100 years on. Average rainfall has decreased, but the heavy rains come, they cause severe runoff in the parched soil. So that headline is actually really relevant because it's happening. That's actually what's happening now. So very good. All right, I'm going to ask you just to drop, for the people who didn't get to share, if you wanted to drop in just like we usually do, just a word or a phrase that you really would like to share from your exercise. It would be lovely to see it. So you take this opportunity now to do that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to just click into the next or the last of my slides, which is this slide here is a slide of the library's NI website, and the book in it is called The Climate Book by Greta Thunberg, and it's actually, believe it's a good read. It's a really interesting read. It's uplifting, and it will help you come to see some of the things that are happening out there on a global level that and at a local level that are hopeful and are not actually we're not all doomed if we act now. That's definitely the idea. And that's everything. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.